This is Footy Talk, your place for the latest news, interviews and analysis from the world of AFL. And it is a Tuesday, which means I bring in my great mate from the States, Nick Riewoldt. Hello to you, Rui. And straight off the top, I'll say welcome because you are an AFL, well, you will be officially an AFL Hall of Famer. But last night, sitting on the couch watching Footy Classified, and Caroline Wilson, the elephant in the room, apparently was you not attending the AFL Hall of Fame, which first of all is quite nice that everyone's sitting there, one of the great nights in the calendar year, and they're thinking about you. Where's Rui? Yeah. So you've got a response into why you were unable to attend this year when the AFL initially thought that maybe you'll be able to come down to receive your award as the AFL Hall of Famer.
Oh, speak of the devil and they shall appear, Joey.
Oh, wow, right on cue.
Little late.
Do you want to answer it live?
Oh, yeah. I don't think that would go well. No, I mean, pretty basic explanation. I mean, it's a huge honour, obviously, the Hall of Fame, and it would have been great to have been there this year, especially with, you know, the man whose poster I had on my wall growing up, Jason Dunstall, going in as a legend. But pretty simply, mate, I want my kids there when I do it, and they weren't able to make it out this year. They had stuff that was really important to them. One was playing all-star baseball. One was on summer camp, which is a really big thing over here for kids, almost a rite of passage. So, would have been okay to sort of fly in and fly out. But when I do it, I would love to have my family with me, and that was pretty much it. So non-event. The AFL were fine with it, and yeah, it came out of the blue, that one from Caro.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty understandable. If I was to get inducted in the AFL Hall of Fame, not that I would, but I would want all my family and have everyone that I love and it's been a big part of it to be able to attend. So it makes complete sense to me. And I think she did say you were back in town and you could have made it at the same time. But that was about 6 weeks ago when
it was about 6 weeks
and you were
earlier.
here for 3 days. Yeah. You had a little bit of business to attend to and went straight back home. So, no, look, that makes complete sense. I don't think it's a big thing at all. So that's about it to do. But I want to make sure, though, I just want to get on the record now. I would love to go to an AFL Hall of Fame event. You know I'm a footy nuffy.
Mate.
You know I'm a nuffy, and I would love to be in that room. So I'm just saying, if you did have a table that you could invite some friends along as well, I'm just putting my hand up that I would love to go one year.
You know you'd be on the table. You don't even have to ask.
Hey, okay, then I'm happy to wait for another 12 months. Hey, let's move on because my thought of the week, and I want to bring up the Bombers because there's been a lot of intrigue, a lot of talk around Essendon, and they're sitting third on the ladder. But there's this narrative from people that, well, they haven't beaten anybody. They've only beaten one side inside the top 8. That was the GWS Giants. All their other wins have been against teams sort of 13 and below. But my thought of the week is, does it really matter who you beat at the end of the day, or is it all about how high you finish on the ladder and how good you give yourself a chance to get either a double chance to win finals, to get through to a prelim, to get through to a grand final? Because from my perspective, I don't think it really matters. At the end of the day, you just need to notch enough wins to ideally finish in the top 4 to give yourself a double chance. And Essendon are doing that, Rui. And what I did yesterday is I went home and had a look at all the teams in the top 8 v other top 8 teams. And you know, right now, only Sydney, of course, who was, I think, 7-7 against the top 8. We know they've beaten everyone. Carlton is the only other team that has a winning record against other teams in the top 8. So no other team has a winning record top 8 v top 8, just to show how even it is and how hard it is really to knock off wins against top 8 teams. So from my point of view, I know we can try and assess where Essendon are at, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They'll get to a final. Hopefully, for their sake, they finish top 4. That's all that matters. Then it is what they deliver, how well they're playing, how they stack up against another team in a final. Why does it matter who they beat?
Whether you pipe one down the fairway and then knock it to 6 or 8 feet and 2-putt and you par the hole, or whether you shank it off the tee, you get lucky and you drain a 50-footer for par. It's in the scorecard. No one actually cares. Yep. So whether you get there by beating the best teams or the worst teams, we know once you're on the grid, it's a level playing field. So, I mean, we can, and this is what we'll do, is we'll try and pull them apart because they've jumped out of nowhere, the Bombers, seemingly. And so we want to try and find a way to discredit their form because they've, in our eyes, or when I say ours, like the media or the footy public's eyes, they've gotten there before their time. So we're going to try and find a way to pick holes in them. But it's irrelevant. First week of finals, if they come up against Sydney at the SCG and they're in the top 4, well then the Swans don't get a 5-goal head start because they had a better home and away record, or they beat more teams in the 8. It's stupid.
Yeah.
So good on the Bombers. All you can do is beat what's in front of you, and so far they've risen to all of those challenges.
Spot on. And who knows who they're going to play in finals? They could be playing teams. We've seen there are 3 teams sitting in the top 8 right now that are horribly out of form. In Port Adelaide, the Giants, the Cats. There's plenty to play at, but it is interesting the way that the ladder is structured at the moment. And the teams, as we've touched on, there is some real issues with some teams in form. We know that Sydney are obviously by far and away the best team. Carlton have announced themselves as the second best. I think Collingwood are still there, and the Brisbane Lions are the smoky that are coming. So it's been fascinating. I want to get your take on the Port Adelaide situation. I spoke about it on First Crack. There is a sense of, from my perspective, inevitability and a bit of doom that this season, if it doesn't pan out the way that Port Adelaide expect, and I think for them it's probably anything short of a prelim is probably what that is. It going to be falling short of expectations, and it probably seems like it's going to be hard to continue with Ken Hinkley. What have you seen from your point of view from over there?
Yeah, well, for a start, the reaction post-game, I mean, clearly there are issues within their game, and there have been sort of for a number of weeks now, but the reaction was awful. I mean, I don't know why we do this. Ken's been a wonderful contributor. It kind of falls in line with the Bronx cheering of your own players who haven't had a good day. It just doesn't sit well with me. So I think Ken's been a wonderful contributor to that football club. Clearly there's an element of frustration that he hasn't been able to get them over the line. But when you look at who, sort of the squads that he's had, have they? I don't think they've ever really underperformed. They've had opportunities that they've let slip in home prelims, but they let those slip against pretty quality opposition. Yeah. At the time, and they were in those games apart from the Western Bulldogs one. That's probably the one to me that really stands out, where the Bulldogs absolutely jumped them and got all over them over at Adelaide Oval. So, look, I feel for Ken. I think he's a great footy person. He's done a great job with that group, but I tend to agree that tipping point. You're always trying to guess when it's arrived. And usually when it's arrived and we're aware of it, it's too late. It's already happened. And I just wonder whether we're in that flux now of that's what's unfolding, that, the message, the style, the ability for him to really resonate with that group might be starting to wane a little bit, because it happens. It happens to the very, very best. And, I hold Ken in that sort of regard as well. So it's a really precarious couple of weeks. If they have a couple more blowouts like they've had, and they've got some big games coming up too, then it could end quickly.
Yeah, and in some ways, it's interesting that their next 3 against teams that aren't in the top 8 at the moment. I'm pretty sure it's St Kilda at Marvel, then it's the Western Bulldogs at home, and then the Gold Coast Suns away. And the thing is with the footy though, it's really weird. They could win those next 3, and then it'll be, and it's then it sort of quells the noise for a while, but then it still won't quell it until they either win a couple of finals or get over that hump. So it's still plenty to play out. But
would you rather in this situation be playing teams that you should be beating, because Port should win all of those 3?
Yeah.
Or would you rather have Collingwood, Sydney, and I don't know, Brisbane in the next 3 weeks to measure yourself against? Well,
they had Brisbane on the weekend, and that backfired horribly. No, I think as a competitor and as a club, you go, no, we want games that we can just win. Let's just put it all on the line. St Kilda, we should just beat. Western Bulldogs at home, about level, we should just beat. And it's all
trouble
on you.
with those,
because then it's on you. It's on them.
Yeah.
It's on them. There's no one else to blame, and it's all on them. So we will watch with interest how that pans out. Hey, speaking about the Brisbane Lions, they are back on track. We flagged it a few weeks ago. Their profile was heading in the right direction. All of a sudden, they are the most powerful offensive team in the comp, and by a fair way, with the way they're moving the ball. Joe Danaher and Hipwood are playing some of their best footy, and it looks like they might get Will Ashcroft to come back into the side this Friday night against Melbourne. Can they win it from outside the top 4 if they don't finish there, really? I said earlier in the year, I thought the way this was so even, and clearly Sydney have separated themselves, but you've got to win a prelim and win a grand final. This might be the year, because it is so even, that a team from outside the top 4 who is hot can steamroll their way through to a grand final. Could you see Brisbane doing that, not having necessarily home prelims and home finals?
Well, home prelims haven't really helped them in the past.
No, it's true.
Until last year. But I go back to the final that where they beat Melbourne at the G.
Yep.
That to me sort of put to bed a little bit of their concerns about travel and concerns about the MCG. So yeah, and they played really well grand final day last year at the MCG. So I think that narrative doesn't really stand up anymore, and that almost became a little bit self-fulfilling there for a number of years. So look, I think if any teams can, we're all really hot on Brisbane at the start of the year. We thought they'd compete really strongly at the pointy end. So I think if there's a team that's capable from outside the top four, that if they could get a home final first, so they weren't sort of travel, then I think so. Yeah. So they need to finish 5th, 6th, so they're not travelling every week, but I'd like them from there.
Yeah, there's something psychological about sort of being the underdog, coming from beneath and being the hunter, being the hunter, and having almost free swings, as opposed to a team that is sitting at the top that everyone's coming after, which has been Brisbane for the last few years, and maybe the start of this year they didn't handle it, but now it's almost a free swing, like what we saw with Carlton and the GWS Giants at the back end of last year. Hey, big news tonight will be Paddy Dangerfield going up to the Tribunal to challenge his 1-week ban for the dangerous tackle. I'm probably in the camp that the way that we have understood the rules now, that he probably needed to make an effort to let an arm go as the momentum was going to ground. You have a different take?
Well, I just thought all his weight and leverage was leaning back. It was away from the ground. So, I mean, the argument that, what's he meant to do? I mean, that's one that gets thrown around a lot. And we know that doesn't necessarily stand up anymore, because, it's more when you're going with the weight that's sort of spinning and you have an opportunity to let go. But I thought he
driving,
was... Or driving. Yeah. I thought he was doing neither of those. I thought all his weight was actually sort of trying to propel him away from the ground. And it was the weight of the player. It was the momentum and the weight of the player with the ball that caused it. So, man, I just thought it was a really, really just eye test. Looking at it, a player to get suspended for that, for me, no, it doesn't line up. So I didn't like the decision. I like that the Cats are challenging it, because I think if they get the biomechanists involved or whatever, and look at the angles, and Dangerfield almost looks like he's trying to pull a horse up, and stop the horse from running. He was leaning back so far. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's almost like there's always been now this line about the concussion and protecting the player with the ball and protecting their head, and we draw a line. And then the line just keeps sort of shifting, doesn't it? It's like, oh, that's too far of a line. Now we need to pull the line back a little bit. And then we go back too far. And then, no. So the line just keeps shifting. And I think this is another example where is the line between the player's head and looking after the player's health and safety first and foremost, what is acceptable and what are you allowed to do as a defensive player in this situation trying to tackle. So, again, the line might just continue to shift.
That's it. This is a pretty good test case that if a player gets concussed and hits his head and gets concussed, it's almost irrelevant what you did to contribute to it. If you were involved in some way, you're going to be found guilty, because I don't think Dangerfield contributed to it in the way that it was the rule and suspension around that was designed to be implemented.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting tonight. The Tribunal will keep an eye on that one. Hey, lastly, before we get to the break, the Kangaroos have been a bit of the story the last 3 weeks. They had the big win, or the win against the West Coast Eagles to break that losing streak. Then we know about the Collingwood game, and they were terrific against Melbourne. To do it a different way, to actually be 39 points down and to almost snatch victory, I thought it was terrific. Luke Davies-Uniacke has been leading the way beautifully. I know JB on the rush hour is pushing for him to be in all Australian calculations, and he should be. But just want to ask you, coming from St Kilda, who in 2000 we finished last, 2001 second last, 2002 second last. I think in that 3-year period won about 7 or 8 games in total, and then it turned pretty quickly. Was there a little period, or a 1 game, or a 3 or 4 weeks period where it turned for St Kilda to then lead to prelims in 04, 05 and go on to have some success? Can you remember anything specific?
Yeah, I think you can identify it in retrospect. So the last 6 or 7 games of 2003, so we were, meddling to sort of bottom of the table, bottom 4 probably towards the end of 2003, and then came out and won 5 of our last 7, 4 of our last 5, something like that. We won a string of games and finished the season off pretty well. We had some really good wins, just started playing a little bit better footy, but we still finished 12th or 13th or something like that. So you don't really think too much of it at the time, and you probably get dismissed because you're out of the picture. But I remember then at the start of the 2004 season, Grant Thomas sat the group down and he spoke about, he almost sort of pulled us all in and said, "Hey boys, I think we're ready." And I remember at the time thinking, ready for what? What's he talking about? And it was, hey, let's have a look at what we achieved to finish the season last year, the teams that we beat, how we played, what they were able to do in finals. Yeah, we weren't there because we weren't good enough over the course of the year, but our form warrants that we take ourselves seriously to start the 2004 season. And it was almost like you needed that injection of confidence and realisation off the back of the performance to actually go out and play and think that you belonged. And that was it for us. And so 2004, you come out, we won the Wizard Cup. Celebrated, pretty strongly with Lenny up on the dais, couldn't wipe the smile off his face, and then won the first 10 of the season in 2004, and ended up playing in a prelim that we lost to Port, who won the flag by a kick. So it can turn, and it can turn really, really quickly, and you won't know it until after the fact. But I just wonder whether North Melbourne, with some of their performances now, if they can maintain this level of consistency, doesn't have to be win-loss, but the level of consistency of performance. And it's fluctuating too much within games. We've seen big leads get swallowed up and them have big runs from being a long way behind. But this could be it for North Melbourne. That we might not know it until next year, but they could be in the middle of something pretty similar.
Yeah, no, I like it. Love the way they're going about it. Hopefully they can continue that form. And they've got some top-end draft picks, not even in the seniors, Zane Dersmer and Colby McKerchuk, to come back into that team. So looking forward to watching North Melbourne. Hey, we will take a break because I want to get into real talk, shit talk. If you do have a question for us, make sure you hit us up on Instagram at Footy Talk _pod or on TikTok at Footy Talk Pod. We're back right after this with real talk, shit talk. You're listening to Footy Talk. If you do have a question, make sure you jump on Instagram or TikTok and hit us up. I'm here with Nick Riewoldt. We like to play real talk, shit talk, where we take a look at some statements made in the last 48 hours and have our take. Rui, I will start with you. Today we find out more about Tom Hawkins' foot injury and whether it is season ending. And if it is season ending, most likely it looks like career ending for the Tomahawk. We won't jump the gun because we're doing this early Tuesday morning, but I will ask you, Tom Hawkins sits right up there with the all-time great key forwards. Real or shit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's real talk. I think what's unique about Tom's career and Tom's sort of trajectory to becoming one of the all-time great key forwards is, he's done a lot late in his career.
Yeah.
It really has been. If you asked that question 5 years ago, so probably 10 or 11 years into his career, I'm not sure you could have said that, but he's averaged close to 60 goals a year in the last, take this year out because he's been injured, but the 6 years previous, he's averaged close to 60 goals a year towards the end of his career. It's been remarkable the way that I think his body type and the way he's played the game has become far more suited to the way the game's been played, and his forward craft, his tricks, his strength, his ability to stand and deliver, his finishing. He's come hard late in his career, and whatever happens today, he's a guy that I've just loved watching because he's done it pretty differently to a lot of the other key forwards over the last decade, and he will stand the test of time as one of the all-time great forwards.
I like that. He's done it his way. That's what you've got to do with your play. Whatever your strengths are as a player, you just maximise it. It is an interesting one without doing the research. I might have to have a look. Would he have the best career post-30 of any player in the history of the game to what he's achieved after the age of 30? Because it's been pretty remarkable. You're right. All Australian.
I don't think you could do it on pure goals, but like percentage of the goals he's kicked in his career after 30, it would be really, really high because like his last 5 years are 49, 67, 62, 49, 56. So he's a lot late. Great player, great fella as well. Hey, Joey, one for you. Zachy Butters from the power. He needs to get off the angry pills.
Speaking of one of my favourites, he's one of my favourites. I love Zachy Butters. But yeah, that's real talk. He needs to get off the angry pills. He needs to go sit down with a sports psych and just learn to control his temper, because it's starting to get out of hand a little bit. I think it's the 3rd or 4th time he's been fined this year. It's up to 10 grand too. So starting to get a bit pricey for him. He needs to channel that aggression and anger, focus it, not that he needs to even more towards the footy and the way that he plays, because he's an absolute star, but maybe channel it more towards his leadership and helping out the rest of his team and help Port Adelaide get back to where they want to get to. I know he's a little fiery unit, and that's what makes him so great, but he just needs to temper that a little bit and needs to do a bit of work on it. So that is a real talk. Hey, another one back to you. Today, I've heard that all the list managers of the AFL clubs are all meeting with the AFL in regards to the changes to the compensation, or the way that you can get your father, sons, or academy players, and needing to pay a more fair and real price for what they are worth. Do you agree with that? The real talk or shit talk that you need to, the advantage you are getting is the academy player and or the father, son, but to do that you need to pay fair price.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely real. I know it was Andrew Bassett that drove that agenda really, really hard, and there were a few presidents that railed against him pretty hard as well, because there's always self-interest in a lot of these conversations, and we understand that. But I think for the good of the competition, on balance, absolutely, you need to pay fair price, because it's a double kick. So what happened with the Gold Coast last year with the academy players? I mean, really, they got those guys for next to nothing, and it's okay to, you gave up the in-kind points, like pick 30 and pick 40 and pick 50 equates to a top 10 pick. I mean, we know it doesn't work like that. That's bullshit. So, I think fair price, and if you want to pay fair price for having first pick of the crop, players that everyone would love to be able to go after, then I think that's the way it should be done, because it would be a shame to just scrap it all completely, because I think academies are important for emerging markets and growing the game, and father-son is unique to our game, and we love it. We love the we love the tradition involved in it. So do it, but make it equitable.
Yep.
Joey, one for you. Last one for you.
Yep.
Darcy Parish hasn't come in for a lot of criticism throughout his career, because he's been a pretty solid player, but our boy Kano thinks that he's going to struggle to make it back into the Bombers' best 22. Real or shit?
No, that is shit talk. I think he's one of the most underappreciated Jets in the competition. I think that when Essendon was struggling, him and Merritt got bundled into the same sort of package as going around chasing kicks, a bit like Cotchin and Dusty Martin all those years ago. We've seen the adjustment from Zach Merritt.
Yep.
Darcy Parish is a star, and I know Brad Scott knows that. He'll come straight back and walk back into their midfield when he's ready. You've got Merritt. Durham's going to be in there, but I think he's the next best midfielder. He goes ahead of Caldwell and Perkins and guys like that have been getting midfield minutes. So, no, Darcy Parish is going to be a massive inclusion to the Bombers when he gets back into the side. So, looking forward to seeing that one. Hey, look forward to, always enjoy seeing you, Rui. Nice to catch up, and we will do it again next Tuesday. But if you are listening on Spotify, make sure you hit the bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Tomorrow, Abby Holmes will be with Jack Heverin and David Zaharakis. But until then, enjoy your Tuesday. Thanks for watching Footy Talk with myself and Rui. New podcast episodes dropping every Tuesday, so make sure you tune in.